my personal biggest goals, as a quote adult is to hone in on my inner child and allow her to fucking climb any goddamn mountain or, rock and color the walls and, get paint all over myself and dirt under my nails. Like, just to be able to fully express and explore because there's so much out there to experience. There's so much beauty to be had. We just have to open our eyes to it.
Hello and welcome to Here in LA, Topanga Canyon edition. Today we return to Topanga to talk with Phoenix Cotner. Phoenix is a model, a world traveler, and an expert on magic mushrooms. Some might even call her a shaman or a Sha woman. You'll hear that she has paying customers over to her home in the wilderness of Topanga where she guides them through their journeys. She also creates microdosing plans for people, including ways to reconnect with your partner in the most intimate ways. So, with no further ado, let's hear from Phoenix Cotner. Hey everybody, we are in Topanga Canyon, virtually, with Phoenix Cotner. Yay!
Hi, everyone.
All right, we're doing a Zoom recording today because I'm a little bit under the weather, and Phoenix, you were nice enough to agree to this weird terms, and Jordan swears that the audio will be good. So this is an experiment. Maybe we'll do more of them like this if need be. So thank you so much, Phoenix, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Phoenix, we met on Thanksgiving at our mutual friend Todd Francis's house.
Yes, I love Todd.
Todd, for those of you who don't know, is a great artist whose work appears on the bottom of your favorite skateboards. He also makes a really disgusting calendar every year. And, and I've known him since college, and I've been so happy to know him all these years. And
He's a wonderful chef.
Oh, that too. Yeah, he cooked Thanksgiving dinner for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if he was a shitty artist, at least he'd have a great backup plan.
Right. So let's cut right to the beginning, which is Phoenix, you work with mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms.
I do. All kinds, but yes, that is the focus.
What would you say, what's your title in regards to these mushrooms?
Oh, this is always a tricky space for me, especially living in LA, because I feel like everyone is a healer or a shaman these days. And I feel like I'm more of a provider and a facilitator of the medicine. I cultivate and I combine the psilocybin with Ayurvedic medicine. So it's more of like a whole body approach. And I'll kind of, sit there alongside you throughout the journey and help, address different medical concerns or mental health concerns. And, help you kind of find yourself in the expansive space that the mushrooms really provide.
This sounds a lot like when people do ayahuasca, they have an expert along with them. Is that kind of what this is, but for shrooms?
Kind of, yeah, yeah. I'll put together different recipes that the individual will take, on either a daily basis or kind of an every other day basis. We do check-ins, every couple of weeks. I'll hold space for journeys as well. But the main focus is more on the microdosing program. So it's kind of like a long-term maintenance program for those who don't want to be on any SSRIs or antipsychotics or, any of the prescription stuff that actually is addictive.
Oh, it can be addictive. Shrooms can be addictive?
No. Shrooms are not addictive.
Okay.
The prescriptions that our Western doctors prescribe us are addictive.
I see. Right.
Yeah.
Right. The ones that we get at Walgreens.
Yeah, Walgreens or the Xanax and Prozacs and Lexapros of the world. Mushrooms are kind of nature's natural antidepressant, and there's no dependency or addictive compounds in it whatsoever. So you can stop whatever you want. they're there really to help you learn how to be okay with your feelings and learn how to not marry yourself to the first intense one that, enters your day.
Right.
It's like seeing your emotions like the ocean waves, they come and go.
So, we've had guests on here who've talked about microdosing, and maybe I'm just old, but that seems like a really long commitment. I remember in college, probably my first week at UC Santa Barbara, shrooming. I didn't know what it was. My friends all gathered and said, "We're gonna go up into the woods, and you're gonna eat this shroom, and it's gonna be weird, but we're here for you." And it was maybe that's one of the reasons why we've bonded, me and my friends, for 30 plus years, is we had these journeys, as you call them, together, and our third eyes opened in unison.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible way to bond with one another. I work with couples a lot too. Give them an assignment with a larger, macro dose, and it helps. There's this this couple that I'm working with currently that have been together for, I want to say, 15 years, married for 10 of those years. And they still very much love one another, but they kind of fell out of love with one another, and they don't want a divorce. They want to work through it because they know that they can, but they've kind of tried all the other outlets, and so they ended up getting referred to me. And I kind of had my own experiment with this personally a couple of years ago, and I was shocked that it took me that long, after having worked with this medicine for 12 years, to experience it in an intimate level or space with someone else, right? And whenever I was going through it, it was as if, this person and I were back to our like 14-year-old selves, discovering the other person's body and anatomy for the very first time ever, and it kind of like, gives you these fresh set of eyes to look at the world and the people around you. And so with this couple, I make these journey balls. They're like little superfood energy truffle balls, and they're individually dosed, so you know exactly how much you're taking. Because that's the other thing. Like I can't stress enough how important it is to understand where your sweet spot is with dosing, because it's case by case with each individual. But so, anyways, I told them, I was like, start off with 1 gram each, and the assignment, by the end of the night, is to have sex with one another. And they're like, okay, we'll make like a whole night out of it. And I was like, if you can, think about like the first date that you guys ever had, and try to incorporate some kind of, factor or familiar space from that first date into this evening. And so they did. And it was like they were taking each other out on their first date all over again, except, going to bed with one another. and and that happened, I want to say, like 4 months ago. And the wife will call me individually and the husband will call me individually. And the wife is like, he wakes up and like makes me breakfast in bed now, And the husband calls me and he's like, I actually like want to hang out with her and like take her out and surprise her and do all these things. Like it's not just centered around our kids anymore, and I mean it, because when the psilocybin enters the brain, it's quite literally going in and creating new neuroplasticity, right? And it's almost like, think of our brain like a fuse box. So sometimes, we get a shortage in a fuse, and the psilocybin will go in and like repair that fuse for you, while allowing you to create new relationships from past, correlations, trauma trigger space, for example. And then it also opens it up so that you can create new neural pathways, which is where it gets more into the healing space, or therapeutic space, with working through depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, stress, things like that. And it allows you to incorporate these new daily practices, of meditation or taking 10 minutes out of the day to put your feet on the ground. It becomes more inviting, and it has a higher success rate versus like, New Year's resolution where we're like, I'm gonna, fast for 2 weeks, work out at the gym every single day, do all these things. We're overloading our our nervous system with all of this. And by like day 3, we're like, fuck, I'm not actually superwoman in this regard right now. Like, this is heavy, this is a lot. So with the mushrooms, it really helps you like bring one factor in at a time to slowly have that overall shift in your life, in your mindset, and your perspective.
I have never thought about doing shrooms and having sex.
It's quite fantastic.
Huh. And men don't have a problem like becoming
No,
aroused?
I mean, I haven't heard of any cases.
Huh. Now
Yeah,
this is because you're microdosing though, right? Like if you took like a full a full college trip, let's say, I
yeah,
don't know. Like for example, my first time, me and this girl, we just stared at each other's hands and like we're blown away by hands. Like I
yeah.
can't imagine being able to. So do you coach them before they become intimate with each other? Like do you give them tips on how they can stay focused?
Yeah, we'll go over exercises. I'll ask some questions to get to know them better, and see like what kind of sparks each individual and intrigues them. And so I'll make little notes and I'll tell them to like have like a little cheat sheet, that they wrote out, because it's really helpful to have those like reminders, down on black and white on the piece of paper, right? But don't get me wrong. If I took, and I'm pretty damn experienced, with this medicine. If I took 3.5 grams, which is the typical, college dose, I don't know if I could be intimate. But if I take 1 gram, right, I'm entering that space of the journey, but I'm not going overboard. I can still have, control to a degree, right, of my mind and what I'm, choosing to do and how I'm feeling and exploring things. It's like 1 gram, I would say, is like having 2 or 3 glasses of wine before you go out on the playground, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So you're still there, but you're just like way more relaxed and giggly. And it also depends on the strain that you're taking too, right? I mean, we walk into these, cannabis dispensaries and they have the sativas and the hybrids and the indicas. Yes, it really does come down to the terpenes, but, just for
Mm-hmm.
example purposes, there's a strain in mushrooms called albino penis envy that goes by ape. And no, I did not come up with these names. um, but with ape, it's more of this like creative, giggly, visual sensation that it brings. Whereas if you have um, let's say like true albino teachers, those I'll recommend to people who really want to like dive deep into inner child trauma work, right? It's very introspective, it's very like grounding, and helps you reflect and work through what have seemed to be problems throughout your life, and help you find those solutions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have like your OGs, like golden teachers or blue meanies, and those are like a really gentle kind of intro space that's like almost equal parts body and mind. So yeah, it really, there's so many factors that come into play with it: set and setting and intention, all of it.
I would think with a couple who's been together for a long time
Hmm.
that um, regarding sex, that one reason they may want a to do something like this is people get set in their ways. And so things like sex become routine and kind of boring after a little while.
Yeah.
And I would think that a shroom trip would, like you said earlier, kind of reprogram the brain a little bit. And you're
Hmm.
kind of experiencing this situation in a fresh way. Is
Hmm.
that true?
Totally.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's like releasing any preconceived notions or confinements that we've put ourselves in. It's opening that box and allowing the childlike explorative side of ourselves to crawl out and like peek under this cover and peek through this hole, and it's like you're walking through like Narnia's closet door into this fantastical land, that has been there this whole time, right? But I think one of our biggest problems is that, when we enter this thing called adulthood, we're told that we have to, be more formulated and more rigid and more confined because adults don't do certain things. That's what a child does, but fuck that narrative. Like, fuck that sideways, because what does it do? I mean, how many people around you do you see miserable? Like, whenever I'm driving around LA, I'm looking around and people are either check the fuck out on their phones or like massive road rage, right? And
Mhm.
I'm definitely guilty of road rage from time to time. I'm getting better with it, but but like there's just so much anger inside, and I think it's because we have told ourselves that we are not allowed to do certain things because of what other people might think, right? And one of my personal biggest goals, as a quote adult, is to hone in on my inner child and allow her to fucking climb any goddamn mountain or rock and color the walls and get paint all over myself and dirt under my nails, like just to be able to fully express and explore, because there's so much out there to experience. There's so much beauty to be had. We just have to open our eyes to it.
I would also think if let's say one of the partners wanted to experiment a little bit in bed,
Yeah,
and the other partner is like, what are you doing? What's going on over here? But if you're both on shrooms and
yeah.
you've gotten this super sexy assignment from beautiful Phoenix, both people have permission now to really go for it, like in a
Yeah.
different way. And it's not your traditional, okay, it's 11 o'clock, let's knock one out before we go to sleep, right?
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. No, if they have kids, I'll suggest like find a babysitter. You don't want to be distracted because a lot of them will be like, well, what if Susie walks in the room, and sees us on shrooms? And I'm like, that's actually probably not a bad thing to like start normalizing the conversation, which a lot of people really are, which is absolutely incredible. But just so that you aren't think, because look, when you're on mushrooms, it's very easy for the fear to come in and kind of echo throughout our head, right? So if you take away any of those factors and create clear space for you, then you don't have any of those distractions and you can be more focused. And yes, you are giving each other permission to enter this explorative space. If it's a couple going and doing this, they're both clearly, wanting to shift something or grow or, reconnect in a certain way, right? And another thing that I found too is, when on mushrooms, communication becomes a lot kinder and more gentle and more compassionate, and you become more understanding and open.
Mhm.
So if there were a finger to go up something that the other person didn't feel comfortable with, instead of like whipping around and slapping that person or getting upset with them, it's typically more of like, oh, I don't know if I'm quite ready for that.
Mm.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. What would you like, right? And it's like, I mean, again, it's being the little kids. Kids are so brutally honest,
Mhm.
and so easy to forgive the other person, and so quick to, right? So you're in that mind state.
Mhm. Okay, so I forget where I saw this. You have a website, right?
It's being built right now. Yeah, it's gonna go live very soon.
Maybe I saw this on your Instagram then. You
Uh-huh.
well, let's go back to like the shaman aspect of it, where you can lead somebody on a journey. You're not in the room with some of these people sometimes as they're doing the sex stuff, are you?
Oh, no, 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 not with that. That's like an at-home assignment, or they'll
Right.
go and get a hotel and they do it. I help them like verbally with things leading up to it and
Right.
the medicine.
So when you are actually there with them when they're shrooming, what's that like?
Yeah.
What are typical goals of that?
Um, a lot of the time it's people wanting to have a certain breakthrough. They've recognized that they have certain, negative behavioral or thought patterns that keep coming up in their, personal relationships, work relationships, friendships, whatever it is, that are blocking them from experiencing a truer state of happiness, um, a larger space of creative self. Um, there's those who are, truly debilitated by, some of these traumas, right? So for the week leading up to the journey space, I'll hand out a writing assignment for each day. It's like a journaling exercise, followed with a suggested dieta, diet plan. And the diet space is more of an intentional space because I can't force you to not eat that ice cream in the middle of the night. I can't force you to not have that cocktail at dinner the night before. Um, I can't force you to do any of it. I can suggest it to you, and depending on how badly you want to heal yourself, depending on how much you want to get out of the experience, that's how much you follow the diet plan. That's how open and honest you get when you're filling out these writing exercises. So so the writing exercises will be submitted to me the night before, so I kind of have my own, handbook into your mind, right? And it helps me understand what your childhood space was like, what your relationship with your friends and family has been like and is like, partnerships, what your relationship is like with yourself, what happiness is to you.
Hmm.
It just kind of, setting up the groundwork, right? And so then the individual will come over to my home and we'll sip some tea with the medicine, do a meditation. And I like, a lot of times because I don't need to convince the hippies or the hipsters, that are, always, experimenting with this medicine, right? I find myself attracting more type A personalities that have never worked with the medicine before, and they want to switch to something deeper and more natural. So there can typically be a bit of fear from that individual to enter the space because it might be their first time going on a journey, right? So I would try to create as welcoming and safe as a space for this individual to come in and kind of break down any barrier that they may have created in their narrative with me, right? I want them to feel safe with me. I want them to see that I'm as human as they are, as flawed as they are, and just that I'm here to kind of hold your hand, um, and so I'll, open up with like, just really simple conversation, like small talk, which, I kind of have curated in a way that it'll bring up certain answers from them that I can use as the segue into the deeper question. And usually that's when the medicine starts hitting them, right? And and so, I'll kind of ask certain questions that suggest um, intentions that they express, that they have for this space. And um, and when the heavier things start to come up, I'll suggest different mantras, saying I love you to self, releasing the negative energy that has kind of built as this like gunk inside of ourselves. I do a lot of like visualizing type of work. Um, I sat with someone yesterday, and we imagined this kind of like portal opening in her chest because she felt very tight, very confined in her chest. And, I was like, what do you see inside? And she was like, it's just a bunch of tar. It's so much tar. And I was like, well, let's get that shit out. We don't want that inside, right? And so she had her eye shades on and she's just pulling out this like rope of tar that was like never ending. And afterwards broke down crying and we're just holding each other. And, it was this beautiful breakthrough of release. And we'll go outside sometimes, connect with the nature. Depending on how it's going, I might bring in some, painting supplies, to express self. I always recommend like a journal because you'll have these like breakthrough, epiphany, realizations, and you want to be able to remember that later.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
I'm really impressed that you do this at your house. It seems like, I mean, I don't know, that just seems it's I've never thought of this before. Like, is it weird that they're doing it at your house? Do you feel like they're invading on your privacy at all?
No, I have rituals before and after the journey to kind of cleanse my house of the energies. Um, and it's just I have to laugh at myself because so much of this can be exacerbated where we live, right? But it's a real thing, and in the beginning, I wasn't cleansing my space and myself from this, and I realized it was taking a very serious toll on my own energy. It's kind of like soaking up these other people's pain and sufferings. Um, and I remember I had a session with my therapist one day, and I was like, do therapists have therapists? She just broke down laughing so hard. She's like, of course. She was like, and my therapist has a therapist, and they have and so on and so on. And I was like, okay, I feel better now. I mean, it's it's the whole thing, but I feel like from my own personal experience, what this medicine has done for me, how it has changed my entire life. I mean, it saved me from myself in so many ways. I was clinically depressed for over a decade, suicidal at one point, and just didn't understand how anyone could do this thing called life. And I could not be more fucking grateful for existing today. And so if I can share my experiences, strength and hope with anyone else, that to me is being able to wake up and each day and feel like I'm living a fulfilled life. So, my home, like I've designed it and decorated it and created this space in such a way that I want it to be welcoming to others. I think community is so important, and creating a safe kind of hub for people to know exists, to be able to step inside and, leave their worries out the door. I think is a wonderful gift to be able to get to give.
Hmm. Um, would you say it's better for them to do it at your place or at their place?
Um, it's dependent. I think, if they feel safer doing it at their home, I will go over to theirs. I've also flown out to people before, and done it in, different locations around the world. It's really case by case.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people, at least in the local LA area, typically decide to do it at mine, so that they're not distracted by the environment that they've created at home. To just like really have a fresh, clean slate, if you will.
Right. Well, you don't want the door to knock, you don't want phones to ring, all that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Do you want
Uh-huh.
to talk about price?
Uh, it's that's such a tricky space for me. I had a really difficult time in the beginning of like even putting a number on any of this because I was like, it grows in our backyards essentially.
Yeah, but your
So
your time is valuable. Forget the shrooms.
no, definitely. Definitely, I think and that was one of the biggest things. I was talking to a lot of friends, who have their own practices or businesses and whatnot, and they were like, you have to look at it as an energetic exchange. You are giving so much of your energy, whether it's making these products, holding space for people and so on, um, and I think that's helped me a lot. But yeah, I mean, I guess to sit with me for the day, which includes the work leading up to and the few weeks following for integration space. I ask for a donation of 1,555.
Sounds good to me. Works for me. Well, this is why. This stuff is priceless. What you're doing with them is priceless. And
Yeah,
any psychedelic trip that you take, you're probably going to remember forever.
yeah,
So if you've
I
got
definitely remember all mine.
right. So this is different than seeing a movie.
Yeah.
This is like as intimately about you as you're gonna ever get.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's almost like, 6 to 12 months worth of therapy in one day almost,
There you go. Yeah.
you know?
Okay, so let's talk about where your house is. You live in
Yeah,
Topanga Canyon.
I do. Very grateful.
Can you describe Topanga to people who are listening? Because we have a lot of listeners from not from LA, not from California, and
Yeah.
and when they think of LA, I don't know if they think about Topanga.
Oh, definitely not. And I kind of love that too, you know? I think, Topanga to me is this kind of hidden gem inside of this wildly pretentious at times metropolitan space, and um, I love LA for a multitude of reasons. And when I first moved to LA 12 years ago, I was living in West Hollywood, and I was also 20 years old, right? So it was great at the time, and I was modeling, and work was like all right there. But as I started to, I guess, like crave deeper connection, and started to hike more and camp more, I was just, anytime I would drive back to my apartment in West Hollywood, I felt like my soul was kind of being like ripped out of myself, and I was living in Bali in 2020, and being out in the jungle on my motorcycle, just having this like free reign and deep connection with nature. Coming back to LA, like at the time, I had a house in like Eagle Rock South Pass border, which is beautiful. I love it over there, But I remembered being in Bali, like the one of the main reasons why I ever moved to LA was to be by the water, and so when I came back, I had been to Topanga, a couple times before, but I never felt like I was cool enough to live here. I felt like you had to like know this like secret handshake, and like take a certain test to like pass to be admitted into, this like this gated community space.
Which is
And
bizarre because to me, it's a hippie place without
it
gates.
totally is. Yeah, no, exactly. But I had created this story around it, and our brains are wild and wonderful storytellers. Um, but so I was just like, fuck it, like it's now or never, and I found a really cute little cabin on this compound in the center, and I was there for like a year, and I kind of outgrew that space, and this other home opened up that had more views, felt more expansive, and my own private backyard and whatnot. And I was just like, this is absolutely it. I'm sitting here talking to you on my back porch, overlooking the Santa Monica Mountains, and outside of my doorstep, if I take like 20 steps, there's the trailhead to the state park. The only cars that I ever hear are my neighbors or like the mailman. And, there's mountain lions and coyotes, and I wake up to the birds and the butterflies dancing, and I go to sleep to the toads and the crickets. It's absolutely wonderful. It's like the moment that I hit PCH from the city and I see the water, and then I'm, driving up this beautiful windy canyon that, by the way, is gushing with waterfalls everywhere right now.
Ooh.
Um, all any problems or stresses that I thought I had just leave, you know. I like enter this like nature's natural therapeutic session space, It's wonderful. And it's such a tight community too.
Your background, you're
Yeah,
Native American.
I am. Yeah.
So to me, again, I don't like putting people in boxes, but you kind of fit in this box. Um, wouldn't you agree that our stereotypes about Native Americans is that you're grounded with the earth, you're one with nature, and in your case, nature in many different facets.
Mhm.
Would you agree with that stereotype? Is that fair?
I think, I don't like to put one group, all into this one space, but I think it's definitely true that, certain mindsets and ways of practicing in life can be passed down through our DNA, right? And I didn't grow up on reservation. I grew up, outside of Houston. And I when I was a kid, I remember like fantasizing about New York and being a supermodel and being around all this fashion, and as I got older and I had that, I was like, this actually isn't it. I'm still missing something. And the older I get, the more in touch with my native roots I become. And, the more I'm starting to honor that space on a daily basis. I know quite a few Native people, and I think that, if you look at those who did grow up on reservation, the grass is always greener, right? Some of them really want to live in these metropolitan cities and, be in that hustle and bustle. Some don't. There's plenty that don't even, that refuse to get cell phones, for example,
Mm.
which I wish I had that strength, maybe one day. But it's I definitely feel more at home than I ever have, especially like splitting time between here and Big Sur. Like I feel like Topanga is kind of LA's little Big Sur pocket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about modeling real quick? Because
Yeah,
earlier we were supposed to do this a couple hours ago, but then you
yeah,
texted and said, "Whoops, I've got la la la, I've got a modeling audition or something like that."
yeah.
And that is that's the dream that many people have, and you are still living it. That's impressive, don't you think?
I mean, I'm really grateful that I've been doing this for 17 years. A lot of people's careers don't last that long, and the industry can be very brutal and vile, and it can eat you up and spit you out if you don't have, tough skin or like a centered, healthy, idea of self, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it did chew me up and spit me out, when I was in my early 20s. And I started modeling when I was 13. I was being trained as a classical ballerina, and I was basically trying to decide between, okay, do I go to Juilliard and hopefully dance with the New York Ballet, or do I take this modeling contract and, who the fuck knows what's going to happen. And I chose B. I wanted to explore the world. I didn't want to be a cripple by the time I was 24 from, point shoes and wooden blocks inside. And have been very fortunate to live in many different countries and soak up many different cultures. And it's kind of nice being in LA for this now because so much of the industry has moved here.
Mhm.
Um, and it helps keep a constant change of environment for me, which helps keep me stimulated. I have a lot of respect for those who can do this, but I could never sit at a office building with a 9 to 5 job. I would go crazy.
Yeah.
So with with modeling though, it's like, sure, there are some glamorous sides to it, but it's not as sparkly as people on the outside may think. I mean, like today, for example, I was getting ready to have this podcast with you, and my booker calls me and she's like, hey, can you be in downtown in like 20 minutes? And I'm like, yeah, let me just grow wings real quick and fly over because that's like an hour and a half away right now.
Mhm.
you know but you have to figure out how to make it work. And so it can be hard to make your own plans, and because usually I've found that if I like book a flight to go, somewhere for myself, then the moment that I land in that location, then it's like, oh, you have a shoot in LA tomorrow, you have to fly back, which has happened before. um and there's of course the other space too where you're constantly under a magnifying glass and told maybe you're to this or to that, or you're not enough here or not enough there. And you know I've seen it destroy girls before, and for me, I'm finally in a place where I'm confident enough in my own self and I love myself enough to say like, well, you know what? You win some, you lose some. And maybe I just wasn't right for that client, and that's totally okay. But I know I'll be good for like one of the next five. it's it's a gamble always, but that's life.
You've done this for how many years modeling?
17.
Woo!
Yeah.
Tell me your favorite experience in modeling.
Um, Damn. There's a few, but the first one that came to mind actually, I was 16. I was living in Milan, Italy at the time. And somehow, 'cause, I mean, I, I was and am pretty flat. I booked a campaign for La Perla, which is this like really fancy lingerie company, and we flew out to Bodrum, Turkey, which I I guess I understand now it's like a pretty big travel destination, but back then it was just like a bunch of old men smoking shisha and playing backgammon in the alleys, and it's like this little cliffside town with this castle and like crystal clear blue waters as far as you can see. And, we got to stay on this beautiful boat for a week and shoot. And it was just like a little vacation, it was absolutely incredible. And like half the time, whenever dinner came around, the crew would be looking for me, and I'd be over there in one of the alleys smoking shisha and playing backgammon with the old guys.
What's shisha?
Hookah, argile.
Ah, okay. Uh,
Yeah,
let's go back to you being flat.
yeah.
Is isn't that what the French love?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's the industry has changed so much and it's gone through so many iterations. At the time, it was this like heroin chic, super skinny Kate Moss kind of thing, right? And then, as Instagram started to become a thing and the Kardashians, started to become a thing, then it was all about curves and, big boobs, small waist, big butt. And, I think we watch the pendulum go from one total end of the spectrum to the other complete end, and I feel the industry is kind of starting to find the space in the middle, you
Hmm.
know I think it's really beautiful how there's this newer campaign of celebrating diversity and different ethnicities and different looks, and really celebrating the individual. Before it was, okay, do you look like a hanger, with these clothes laying on you? And also don't talk because you're the model, and don't talk because you don't have a brain because you're a model, and just like exist, and that's it. And now, you know, individuals are getting booked because of what they, stand for, what they're advocating, what voice they have, what their interests are, how they express themselves, and I think that that's wonderful. Like, I I think, it's quite insane to um, have an industry represented by one look, because I mean, fashion has no barriers. Fashion, speaks every language around the world, right? Even if you're, shopping at Sears,
Hmm.
it's still a form, right? Um, so yeah, I think, I'm becoming celebrated again for having a flutter jet, which is
Uh,
nice.
do you think that you get some gigs that other women wouldn't because you have this exotic look about you? Do you think it's working in your favor?
Yeah, I think that that's probably one of the reasons why I, am able to still have a career at 32. My look can be quite ambiguous. There's been weeks where I, shot an editorial where I was, very Latin, and another one where I was like wearing kimonos and dressed like a geisha, and
Hmm.
another one that was more native, and then another that's just like super bohemian. Um, yeah, I think it's definitely played in my favor.
Let's wrap up with secret spots of Topanga Canyon.
Oh,
I don't know how secret this place is, but I just saw a TikTok yesterday. It's maybe my phone has been listening to me, and it's about it. There's a treehouse restaurant in Topanga. Are you
uh-huh.
familiar with this? Like I think it's called like Cafe 22 or something like that. Have you
Oh, Cafe 27.
20? There you go. Great.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you been to
I've
this?
actually, I actually haven't been, just because it's always so packed.
Oh, it's that
Um,
popular, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Especially Saturday, Sunday brunch time. They're like the cars are pouring out onto Topanga Canyon Boulevard. But I've heard that has a really beautiful like lookout space over the canyon. Um, and I'm not sure about the food. Some friends own Topanga Living Canyon, which is right up the road from that, and it's kind of like a Balinese take on SoCal, brunch and lunch style food. I really do like that spot, and
Oh,
it
wait a
has
second. Wait. A Balinese take on LA?
yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, they have like this one I forget what they call it, but one of their breakfast meals it has eggs with this like spiced jam that's very typical Balinese with these little biscuits and it's like certain vegetables and whatnot
Mm.
that really evoke that space. And the owners are a Balinese brother and sister.
Oh, wow.
Um yeah, they grew up half between Topanga and half Bali.
And what was this place called again?
Topanga Living Cafe.
Nice. Is
Yeah.
there another spot that you want to blow up while we've got you?
Oh, it's so hard because I feel like you kind of just have to come here for yourself and, let your mind understand what you're feeling called to. I think that's one of the beautiful things about these canyons is it's left to, this kind of happen chance and magical surprise. Um, okay, here's what I would say. If you do make it out to Topanga, and you're driving around and you see, an old path on the side of the road that may look a little overgrown, just fucking take it. Like, you never know where it's going to lead you to. And the ones that I've taken, I find like watering holes and waterfalls and, incredible wildlife. And sometimes even like old fossils or, native like cave paintings.
Phoenix, if people want to microdose with you,
Yeah.
how do they contact you?
You can send me a DM on Instagram at mas.seta, Maseta.
Does that mean anything?
Yeah, so Maseta is it's a play on two Spanish words, mas and seta, more mushrooms. So the idea is Maseta más vida, more mushrooms, more life.
I feel so silly of course, Moss, but I guess I didn't know the shrooms one.
Yeah.
Phoenix, you've been a delight. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And I when I get my $1,500, I think I'm gonna have to microdose.
Amazing. Well, that's not for the microdosing. That's for the journey. The microdosing is much more affordable.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much,
All right.
and
Thank you,
enjoy
hon.
all these waterfalls today.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Okay, bye bye.
All right. Bye.
How great was Phoenix? You know who we'd microdose with next to waterfalls in Topanga? Our Patreons. When you stoke us, you're saying, Tony, Jordan, open your third eye, fellas, on us. So shout out to our Patreons, Nancy Rommelman, Sean Atlow, Matt Mills, Sean Wallace, Greg and Molly, Jamie Taylor, Mark Johnson, Kira Ann, Barney Grinke, Ben Welsh, Jen Adams, Trevor Wilson, Bree Wild, Dougie Gyro, Christina Up North, Robin Carey, Adam Shorn, Ben from Down Under, and Chris from the ATX. To be a Patreon, go to patreon.com/hereinla and give till it hurts. Also shout out to our Angelinos, like our newest one, Lisa. To be an Angelino, all you gotta do is PayPal or Venmo $25 or more, and we'll list you on the Here in LA website or Medium blog forever. Just send your hard-earned cash to busblog@gmail.com. Want to support us, but you're saving up to give a bunch of cash to Phoenix? No problem. You can still help. Post your favorite episode on Facebook. OMG, post too. Tweet something nice about us. And in fact, anytime you see us tweet an episode, retweet it. And for God's sakes, tell your friends. Tell them how Here in LA is spelled, and it's on Apple Podcasts and Google and even Amazon. Here in LA is produced by myself, Tony Pierce, and a man who has strolled the runway of Milan in Parisian lingerie and was promptly arrested, Jordan Katz. Editing, mixing, and music supervision by Jordan Katz. Songs by Oregon and Jordan Katz. Special thanks to Cindy for creating the logo, Jen for inspiring this, and Todd Francis for introducing me to Phoenix and cooking us all that good grub.